If you just got off a sales call recently and you asked, but how does that make you feel? I need you to stop, go ahead and log off for me, close out all of your tabs, go outside, go touch some fucking grass, because
you sound like a scripted therapist.
And scripted therapists do not collect $100,000 a month in cash consistently. Now here's the thing. There is a framework that was created by one of the most popular sales trainers in the space. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That is genuinely one of the best things ever created for high ticket sales online. Now, question-based selling not only helps your prospect sell themselves, pre-handle their own objections, but ultimately allows them to arrive at the same conclusion that they need to buy now and not later, and ultimately helps you close those deals without having to pressure people at the end of your sales calls. Matter of fact, when it's executed properly, it almost feels downright unfair. The problem is though that 90+% of people execute this framework terribly, because there is a very fine line between going too deep, pause, and not deep enough, pause again. Now, a lot of you guys are asking the right questions, but you have no idea the actual specific answers you're supposed to get out of each and every single one. And when you're asking the right questions and using the right words, but you have the wrong tonality, your prospects are sitting there wondering if they're in a therapy session and they should be looking for a couch to lie down on. And here's why that matters. 38% is your tone alone, and the other 58% is your body language. So you could have the perfect word track, the right question to ask, but with the wrong tonality and body language, you will completely destroy the responses that you're getting. And most people using this framework have no idea that their delivery is far more important than just the words they're using. For example, there's a massive difference between me saying stop, like I'm being playful, pause for the third time, and me saying stop, which just has a way more serious tone and body language behind it. It's the exact same word that I used, but has a totally different meaning being conveyed on the other side. And because of this nuance, so many people struggle with knowing exactly why some calls close and other ones don't. The framework is not the problem, your execution is. Now, I've helped generate well over $10 million for different coaches and agencies, and the biggest difference that I have noticed between closers doing $30,000, $40,000 a month in commissions compared to those only doing maybe $5,000, $10,000 a month comes down to these three things. The first one being the exact tonality that you need to have behind every section of your call, knowing the exact outcomes that you're supposed to hear out of every single question that you're asking, and again, each section of the call. And lastly, your vehicle. There are so many skilled closers that I've personally met who are simply on the wrong offer. Whether the marketing is ass or your commission structure is super low, chances might be that you also are on the wrong offer and or vehicle to utilize your skill set. But anyways, that's a conversation for another day. In this video, you're gonna know the exact framework that I personally use to collect over $100,000 a month consistently in cash so that you can do the exact same thing. And I did this off a laptop with a blank white wall, not the fancy one you see now, which by the way, this isn't that crazy, with super messy hair and a baby face,
which I basically still have now.
And I'll also show you the commissions that hit my bank account so that you can see everything I'm talking about is based off real results and facts. Let's dive right into it. There is a lot to cover here, and as you can see, this was me with my messy hair not too long ago, also here as well. And this is me and my brother getting trained by some of the goats in the info space. I've also gotten coached by every freaking coach ever in the space. I've spent just an outrageous amount of money, but here's some of my favorites. So my man Kyle, so he was the previous director of sales for 7th Level. I was his first ever mentee after he ended up leaving 7th Level. And then also my boy Curtis Anderton, who actually got consulting from, I think this was like, I don't even know, 2 years ago now. But funny enough, coming full circle, both my brother Damien and myself consult for Agency Closers, which is the company that Curtis Anderton runs. And I am actually the head of sales for Agency Closers now. So super crazy. And here is the commission that was paid out to me as promised. As you can see, $5,000 or almost $6,000 getting paid into my account. 11,000, another 11,000, another 11,500, $15,000, another $4,982. And as you can see, this is when I hit a bit over 20K in a month. As you can can see, all of this that I'm about to go over with you is literally based on real results that I've gotten. One of the best months I ever had was collecting $152,823, and I had a 96% plus cash collect rate. I had a 90+% show rate. I had a 64% close rate that month, and in total, I took over 318 calls on one of the offers I was on, and I had a overall 48.18% close rate. This framework works. The stuff I talk about on this channel works exceptionally well. And if you haven't already seen how to have a dialed show rate and the process behind that, go check that video out down below. And you can also look at all the playlists I have created, which goes over everything you need to be absolutely dialed with sales. Now, this video, like I said, is going to break down the framework, everything in between. And the reason I'm doing all this is because partly I want to make resources and assets that I wish I had on my journey, scaling across multiple offers and doing all this stuff. Now, the other part too is I would love to work with you if you're an offer owner to help you scale your sales team and or through consulting, etc. Hit me up on Instagram, just my name, Calvin.Angel, and I would love to be able to just help scale those teams, help you if you're a closer, land on a better offer, and ultimately just get really fucking good at sales because it's an awesome skill test to have. And all of this happened simply because I started learning about and focusing on identity. And so there's a concept that is talked about a lot in this space, which is going from good to great. Now, what does that actually mean? Going from good to great is the reason that most people are comfortable. They end up staying good because they're financially successful compared to society terms, and they don't actually pursue becoming great. There's two types of people that you're going to sell in this space: people that are away and people that are towards. And so people that are towards, it's really important that you're selling from good to great. And that's going to be most of your PIFs. People who can actually afford your services. If you're selling something that's $5,000, $10,000, they got to have money. And usually these people are way more sophisticated, so you need to know exactly how to sell those people. But even aside from those folks, the people that are away, it is a lot easier to sell them. And that's where in the info space and the coaching space, there is way more identity and talk about beliefs during your sales calls. And you're going to see the simplest way to reframe beliefs, to prenatal objections, to do everything you need to ultimately get people to have so much internal urgency that they have no choice but to buy at the end of your sales call. Identity is defined as this: people need to be someone other than who they've been to get better outcomes. This is like my own definition in my own words. And if they were already the person who makes amazing decisions and had the right mindset, they would already be where they want to be. Now, this core fundamental is exactly why we use identity during our sales calls, is because we need to get people to act like their future selves now. There's literally a book called Be Your Future Self Now, a great book that really helps illustrate this principle. And essentially, we need to get people to act in accordance with the best version of themselves. And it's always going to be for them to get outside their comfort zone, for them to take action and do the things they know they need to do in life. And again, this framework right here that we're going to break down right now is the exact process that has just generated a grossly amount of revenue. But aside from that, it is going to show you exactly how to consistently build pain during your calls. That is one of the biggest things that I personally struggle with early on in my journey. Is I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on this as well, is building pain consistently, like identifying the pain point and then putting salt in their wounds to the point where they're like, holy shit, I need to make a change. And then ultimately, how do I reframe beliefs consistently on every single call and then tie a cost to those beliefs so that anytime I get a pricing objection, whatever the case is, I have the pain that I built in discovery to leverage in objection handling so that objections are pretty easy to overcome. I honestly believe I was never an insane objection handling reframe or anything like that. And some of the best people at sales that I know are not absolutely in crazy good at objection handling. Same thing with salespeople. People are doing like 20, 30, 40K a month. If you're in the space for quite some time, you'll see people that are dumber than you. Same thing in business, just even outside of closers. People that are way dumber than you, but manage to make way more money than you. And it's not because they are the absolute god at objection handling. It's because they just rely on consistent frameworks like this, and they take way more action. They take way more risks, because people who are very intelligent tend to really think through things and are very analytical. If you're someone like myself, I suffered from this a long time, where I would really overthink everything I was doing, the decisions I was making, what I was doing, when I was on calls, I get in my head, all this stuff, right? But again, let's dive right into the framework that'll get you guys way more cash and ultimately help you consistently collect $100,000 a month. So we're going to go through from starting off the call to situational questions, problem awareness, getting people's actual buying decisions bought in, calling out limiting beliefs, how to consequence properly. And then I have another video linked on how to create a dialed presentation, and I'll link that down below as well. Commitment, and one on handling concerns. I have an objection handling framework that I built because, again, I have never seen a sales resource that sells to sophisticated buyers specifically for objection handling. So you're going to see exactly how to handle any objection that you'll get. And I talk about a lot of it for a B2B setting, but B2B is really just people who are more sophisticated. Like they are more aware of what you're doing in the sales process. You probably heard of a lot of reframes on your feed of people that are going through sales reframes where they're using like heavy is the head that wears the crown and the airplane analogy, which I actually personally really like a lot. Now, the heavy is the head that wears the crown one is pretty difficult to use properly if you don't have the right tonality, and there's a lot of nuance behind it. But the objection handling flowchart I made is something that I've never, like any training I've ever gotten, any mentor I've ever invested into, they never had an actual mind map and flowchart and how to handle objections in a way that doesn't feel super cheesy to me. And so I made it. And it took me months, but if you guys want access to that, just DM me on Instagram again and I will shoot it over to you. But diving right into it, as promised, is how to start off the call. And so this is also known as the connecting phase. So we first want to find out why on the call in the first place. We're going to ask them, what did they see that made them book a call? So, hey, what did you see or notice from the ad that made you want to like look into this further? Is a really great starting question. And when you find out what they're looking for or like why they booked a call, the whole point of the connecting stage, like I said in the beginning, outcomes is the most important thing. The point behind the connecting stage is to get really clear on what are they trying to accomplish and what is their biggest problem that they need to be solved. And that is going to be your North Star for the entire call. The reason that's so important is because a lot of you guys are going on calls and you're winging it. Like you're not actually sure what the real problem is or what the conversation should be about. So you're just asking a bunch of like random questions, hoping and praying one of them lands and they feel so bad that they just have to buy, or there's just straight up lay down and it's easy to just guide them through the conversation. But this is to strategically get a clear goal and a clear problem that they're experiencing to allow you to focus the conversation on those problems to build way more pain. And you're going to see how we leverage that here in a second. But once you get clear on why they're on the call, one last reason it's really important too is for marketing. If you notice, for example, what prompted people to book a call and you see what the most common answers are from the people who buy, you can tweak your messaging, which is just the words that you use on your ads, to get more people to come in saying those things. So if you notice, for example, on calls, a lot of people are super drawn in by some like tool that you demo in your ads. And then a lot of those people, most of those people who talk about the tool are the ones who buy. You want to make more ads around that messaging because it's clearly converting people and working. That is why this question is so important as to what did they see that made them want to book the call in the first place. And then from there, we're going to ask them what help do they need specifically with the thing you solve. So obviously tailor this to your industry or your offer, whatever it is that you're helping people with. It's pretty straightforward. You're just going to ask them, what do they need help with specifically in terms of thing you solve? So if it's like trading, what do you need help with specifically when it comes to your trades? Or what do they need help with when it comes to weight loss? What do they need help with when it comes to their sales ability? The most important thing that you need to know is that whatever someone wants or needs is fundamentally what they do not already have. And that is where pain is built, is by focusing a conversation on what someone does not have. Someone could be a billionaire, but they're overweight and can't play with their kids and can't go travel, can't go do all these things, and they're not happy. That is where you're going to build pain, is because they can't do those things. That is what's painful. Not necessarily that they're not doing well in life. I mean, they make $1 billion, but there are still limitations to their life. And that is always where you're going to be able to build pain. Always need to get a real answer. Now, what the hell does that mean? It needs to be tangible. It needs to be something that actually makes sense. So they need to answer the question. The most common thing you're going to get on your sales calls is you're going to ask questions and some people aren't going to answer it. They're going to answer in a different way that's kind of answering the question, but they're not really answering it. So like, for example, if I'm like, hey, what help do you need specifically when it comes to sales training? And then you start talking about marketing. Like, yeah, like we just need to fix our VSL. Or they start talking about the leads. They're like, yeah, our leads come on and, they're just like being super difficult. That doesn't actually answer my question. My question was, what help do you need when it comes to sales training? And a more specific answer to that question is that I need help with objection handling. Or when difficult prospects come onto my calls, I struggle with holding my frame and they walk all over me. That is a specific answer to the question of what help do they need? You need to get a very tangible answer to, again, give you what they're missing to build way more fucking pain. And then you're going to find out, why do they need that help? specifically. So for example, I'm going to use sales training because I don't know why, like before I even sold sales training, it was something that was super easy for me to internalize. I'm sure this would probably be the case for you because if you're watching this video, you probably do sales, have done sales, you're a business owner, you're a sales manager, you're a closer, setter, whatever. Sales training just seems to be the simplest examples I can give for you to like really internalize these things. It's what helped me. When I was thinking about building pain, I would think about, okay, someone could sell me sales training because I'm a salesperson and I really deeply understand their problems, their pain points, etc. And so that allowed me to really internalize any hypothetical situations. So I'm going to use that here. If you're like, why do they need that specific help? If you're like, hey, why do you feel like you need help when it comes to objection handling? They could say, I don't know what to say. Or when I get to the end of my calls, they just tell me they need to think about it, or that they need to go talk to their partner and I don't know what to say next. They end up having to schedule a follow-up and then they don't actually buy. That in itself is giving me a lot more clarity as to where to guide the conversation. Because in my head, I'm like, cool, I know the consequences of their problems and I'm going to break down exactly how to think about building pain. That's super simple. That again, this took me like literally years to learn, but you're going to be able to learn it in less than 3 minutes. And it's just going to go over exactly how to build that pain. So for you in sales, imagine right now, this could be the case where you're struggling to handle objections. You don't know exactly what to say. And it's causing you to miss out on deals, which is ultimately costs you money. And that is exactly the angle that I want to attack. And all this is giving me ammunition. And all I did was ask 3 fucking questions. And I already know exactly what your goal is, what your pain point is, and why you want help, which is going to give me all the ammunition I need and my North Star to build pain, to create urgency, to ultimately help the person on the other end. One very specific and important nuance I want to give you is your intentions. Intentions are everything. I'm going to make a whole YouTube video on just this alone, but intentions is ultimately what helps with your tonality. Like the only tonality training you'll ever need, and I've learned from a lot of the goats when it comes to tonality, all you need to do is sound like you. Like as stupid simple as that sounds, the only tonality training you need is you need to speak loud enough where people can actually like hear you. You need to speak clearly enough where you're enunciating your words and people can understand you. And you need to speak slow enough where they can actually comprehend what you're saying. And so what I see so many people mess up is they see the big guys out there, I won't name their names, but they try to sound like these big people instead of themselves. And whenever you're trying to sound like someone you're not, you're literally being inauthentic. And when you're being inauthentic, your prospects can notice that. Us as humans, we're really, really good at having a bullshit detector. Like whenever someone's like trying to be a certain way. So in those moments when you are trying to replicate tonality that you heard somewhere, but isn't how you'd actually say it, and it's coming off as unauthentic, what do you feel like your prospects are going to think when you're doing that? That you're not being honest, that you're not being trustworthy, and they're going to notice that. And that's a big reason why you're probably getting a lot of different objections that are think about it, or you're not able to close the people that are uncertain and fearful, which is probably a lot of your prospects. That is the beginning of the call. And the last piece here is your identity frame. And your identity frame is super helpful to basically start helping shift someone's identity. If you shift someone's identity and how they view themselves, you can probably shift their actions as well. And I'll break down that here in a second. But when it comes to an identity frame, you can keep it super simple. You don't need to do anything crazy complex or advanced. Now, if you want some really advanced stuff, let me know down below. I can definitely put something together. But you can have such a simple identity frame, especially for like a biz op, for example, if they work like a 9-to-5 job or whatever, and they want to become a business owner, you can literally just clarify and say, hey, so like right now, is this something you want to transition to full time, like going from 9-to-5 employee to like a full-time business owner? And they're like, yeah. And you're like, cool. Like, and you can say like your founder, your influence, whatever, like, yeah. And Curtis says this all the time. Like you almost go from taking orders to like taking action. You know what I mean? And they're like, yeah. They were already seeding that in order to become a full-time business owner, they need to go from their old way of thinking as a 9-to-5er, taking orders, to now taking action, which is what a business owner does. They take calculated risks. Those little subtle frames is what's going to allow you to shift their beliefs later on. After you've done that in a connecting phase, and just to really summarize and recap, you need to get very clear. Why are they on the call? What is their goal that they want to accomplish? What do they need help with specifically? Why do they need that help? And then set your identity frame, and you're already off to a killer start. Now, the second part of this is your situation questions. This is super simple. You're just going to find out, what are they doing right now? Have they tried anything else? And then how long have they been doing whatever they're doing? And then why? So it's kind of broad because there's a bajillion different industries and different offers out there. But I'll give you a couple examples real quick. So if you're selling a biz op, they work a 9 to 5, you can literally ask them, what do you do for work right now? And they're like, oh, I do construction, whatever. Okay, have you like done anything else? Have you tried any other businesses in the past? Or is this like the first thing that you'd be doing? Oh yeah, no, haven't done anything in the past. I'm like, cool. Well, how long has this been the case where you just working your construction job, haven't really tried anything? Oh, I mean, the past decade. Okay, well, what caused you to go down the route of just working construction instead of potentially open up a business? And you're going to get so much good context out of these questions that is going to, again, set you up to create a lot of pain. And it gives you context, right? So you're going to see how we leverage the how long here in a second to help pre-handle any objections that you're getting. Something you can use too that is super easy is our consistent jokes. So something I always use, and I didn't create this, I just learned it from some of my mentors, which is like whenever someone says what they do for work, you can always say, okay, so you're just one of the cool girls or gals or guys, whatever. Especially if what they do is like boring, it's like extra funny. It's like, oh yeah, I'm an accountant. Okay, so you're one of the cool guys doing all the numbers, right? And it's really important that you say it with the right tonality, right? And you see my body language, like I'm like smiling and I'm almost like looking up as I'm just kind of jokingly like talking to my friend is how you do it. From there, when you ask how long they've been doing something, if it's been like a decade, you can always make a joke like, okay, so you're just one of the new guys over there, huh? And every time, a lot of times, whenever you can mix in humor into your process, they're so much more open. The psychology behind it is that when you get someone to laugh, they are far more likely to be open with you because they're literally releasing endorphins into their brain, which is like your happy emotion. And they're way more likely to just be honest with you and be open about their current situation. And so that's why you can get better responses when you mix in humor during your sales process. So you're going to find out what are they doing. Let's say they do trading, for example, and you can ask them, okay, what are you doing right now as far as trading goes? Like, do you have a strategy in place? Okay, have you tried different strategies? How long have you just been using your current strategy? And then what caused you to use that strategy over everything else out there, right? It could be the same thing for real estate. Like, what are you doing right now in terms of real estate? Like, do you have a strategy? Are you doing fix and flips? Are you doing rentals? Like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh yeah, we do rentals. I'm like, okay, cool. Have you tried anything else? Like, what type of rentals are you doing? Like, get context on what they're actually doing, because being a real consultant means you have to actually know their entire situation so you have the proper context to actually give proper feedback. If you ever get advice from someone without them actually understanding your background, your unique situation, run in the other direction because they're just giving you blanketed advice without any context on your situation, which you should be doing the exact opposite, which is get very, very clear on the context of their situation so you can make genuine, real actual good advice and recommendations to them. Again, if someone is doing real estate and you find out what they're doing, if they've tried anything else, any other strategies, again, you just find out how long have they running that strategy and then what caused them to invest into real estate that way compared to every other strategy out there. Apply this to your industry, to your offer, of course, but this will give you enough situational questions to have enough context to then build pain, which is my favorite part, problem awareness, like where you're making people more aware of their problems. And this section, which is also known as like solution awareness, I just call it identifying a limiting belief. But these two right here that we're about to go over is where the sale is made. Like if you don't get these two things right, chances are your call is not closing. And so I'm going to break down again exactly how to uncover limiting beliefs, the hierarchy behind it, and why identity is so important. And then here is how we're going to build consistent pain and how to actually identify it in the first place. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find out what's missing or why their current situation isn't enough. The biggest issues you're going to get in an info context is typically going to be time or money. It's very rarely impact, and it sometimes could be that if they're like super high level and make $1 billion, and you can have that conversation. But for them, I'm going to go over the mass general majority is going to be they want more time or they want financial freedom, and or financial freedom really gives them more time. But a quick caveat this reminded me of too is that when you're starting off the call and you find out like why they're on the call, like if you do a biz op, you can literally ask them like what's happening or what's coming up maybe more recently that even has you looking to potentially start a business in the first place. What has you like what's coming up more recently maybe with the way you're investing into real estate that has you considering some other strategies in the first place. Those are like really great questions to immediately get some type of pain point out of them as well. And the nuance I was going to say with all this too is that when you're going over what's missing with their current situation up top, they could tell you that the reason on the call or the reason they want to start their business or the reason they want to get into real estate in the first place is because they want to make more money, or maybe it's that they want to have more time. But really pay attention to what they tell you. If they say it's money, then make sure you focus the conversation around money. If they say it's time, focus it around time. And that's the most important nuance that you need to know for this section to actually do this problem awareness section properly is you need to find out what do they care about the most. And it's just through those questions through connecting. So as you can see, all these work coincide with each other. The reason that's important, I'm gonna give you both examples, both time and money. So if someone's like told you up top that they want more time, and you can infer that it's probably because they want to have more time with their family, then you're gonna ask them why the amount of time that they're working right now is basically too much and or just like not enough time spent with their family, etc., doing the things that they want to do. You want to get them to admit, the key caveat here is that they're the problem. And the reason that it's important they admit they're the problem is because you're helping them take responsibility and ownership over their situation instead of externalizing. If they just solely are externalizing, meaning they're just like pushing it off on something else, like, oh, it's because of this random thing, which is the reason I'm not where I want to be, that is someone who is externalizing. And if you notice people who are externalizing, you definitely know that in the next section we're going to cover here, you want to get them to admit that it's their responsibility to solve their problems in their life. And I'll show you exactly how to do that without being like weird or confrontational. And so right here in problem awareness, you're going to ask them how many hours that they're working a week right now. If they say, oh, I'm working 60 hours a week, and they told you they want to have more time, you want to find out, because they're having to work 60 hours a week, what is that taking away from that they'd want to be able to do if they had the extra time? And this is where you're going to build way more pain, because that's where they're going to say, oh, I'd spend more time with my family, I'd go on vacation, I'd take a vacation for myself, I'd do X and Y and Z. It's like whatever they do with the time is what makes it really painful. And the way you do that is by probing into it. So this is the concept that you absolutely need to internalize when it comes to building pain, which is going 3 layers deep. And the easiest way you can internalize this, and again, this took me forever to learn, like just ridiculous amount of time, but all you need to do is get a very surface level pain. You need to get the symptoms of that problem, and then you get the consequences of those symptoms. And so what does that look like? Let's say, for example, you have a headache. I'm like, how you doing? You're like, yeah, I got a headache. That is a very surface level problem. And if I'm like, okay, well, what symptoms are you actually experiencing? You're like, oh, I have this shooting pain in my head, a bunch of brain fog. It's really tough to just focus on anything. Those are really good symptoms, which makes your surface level problem even more painful. Now, what makes it really painful is the consequences of these symptoms. So I'm like, okay, well, because you're having to deal with brain fog and it's really tough to focus on things, what's happening because of all that? And you're like, yeah, I mean, I can't focus at work. And if let's say they're being vague, right? They're like, yeah, I just can't focus at work. You want to probe into it. That's what I mean. You want to keep probing until you get something that's actually painful. And that's the outcome you need to hear, is what is something that actually, if you were in their shoes, you would admit like that hurts. Instead of them just saying, yeah, it's just tough at work, you can say, in what way? Or what do you mean? Your best friends when it comes to probing is, what do you mean? And can you give me an example? You can literally use those back to back all the time. And you can ask questions like, when was the last time that you, with finances, for example, when was the last time you wanted to buy something for your family, but you just weren't able to? If they said that they want more money to take care of their family, they're going to say, oh, there was this time, a month ago when like my daughter wanted this toy and like I had to tell her no. This is where you build a lot of pain emotionally. So instead of asking like, how did that make you feel in that moment? I like asking in that moment, like when your daughter was asking for the toy and you had to say no, what was running through your mind in that moment? And when I say it like that, I almost look like I look really concerned. And that's what I'm talking about with intentions. You need to actually care about the other person on the other line besides just looking for money. Because when you actually care, your tonality is going to be in alignment. Your body language is going to be in alignment. And that's the easiest hack to be able to actually have real, genuine conversations where people trust you and ultimately open up a lot more so that you have more ammunition to get them to take action at the end of the call. So now let's say it's about time, right? Time's one of my favorite ones because it's pretty easy to like build this pain. And it's literally by asking, like, if you had the extra time, like you didn't have to work 60 hours a week, what would you be doing? Like instead, oh, I'd be spending more time with like my daughter and my wife. Oh, okay, like what would you guys be doing? Right? Like probe into it, be genuinely curious. And they're like, oh yeah, like we would go on vacation. Like, I'd just play with them more. I'd go to their games, etc. Once again, we're trying to get an experience, right? When was the last time that you wanted to go to a game or you wanted to hang out with your wife, your kids, but like you just weren't able to because you had to work? And then if you get a specific moment, right? And they're like, oh, my son had this game 2 months ago and I couldn't make it because obviously I had to work. Or my wife, she was having a really rough week and like, I wanted to spend time with her, but ultimately bills got to get paid. Then again, you can ask, well, what happened 2 months ago? Yeah, like it was his game and like I got called into work and I just couldn't be there. And you can ask them, man, like I can only imagine, like obviously I'm in my shoes, I'm not in yours, but in that moment, like obviously you wanted to be there for your son, but you weren't able to because of work. I mean, what was running running through your mind in that moment? Like, I'm almost concerned. Like, I am really concerned. For someone who's in that position, like, that is very concerning. And so you really want to have that tonality and that body language that you really care and are concerned, because you should be. Like, that is how you should be positioning every single conversation. And your intentions behind it is that you're genuinely concerned for this person, that they are not in a position where they can spend time with their family or support them the way they want to. That is a real problem, and it's your job to help them get through that. And the only way to do that is to create enough pain. The reason pain is so important is because that is one of the biggest drivers of urgency. If someone is super overweight and someone is fairly decently fit, like they're not shredded by any means, but they're all right. If one person is like, oh yeah, I just want to get shredded for a six pack for the summer to get some girls, sure, maybe they're motivated towards that desire. But the person who is dealing with the pain, like the overweight person who is constantly embarrassed, doesn't have a lot of self-confidence, maybe they talk to their doctor and they're like, yeah, you have 6 months to live because of your eating habits if you don't change something. That person is far more motivated because of the pain of their current state and their future state if they don't do something different. And so that's why I'm really harping on this point so much, to build pain, to probe and everything in here, so that you know exactly why this part is so important, to get people to actually make a change, but ultimately exactly how to do it. So to summarize, for problem awareness, you're going to get really clear on why is their current situation not enough as far as time or finances. What are the things that they would be doing if they had the money or they had the time? And then ask them, when was the last time they got to do that thing that they wanted to do? Or if maybe it's money, they never got to do the thing they want to do. Like if they wanted to, I don't know, buy a car, but they never were able to do that. Then you can ask them, when did you first think about getting that car, but you just like obviously realize your financial situation, like you just weren't able to. And if they're like, oh, 4 years ago, man, I've wanted that car forever. In that moment, what was running through your mind? And that is where you get very emotional answers. It could be stuff like, yeah, like it was terrible, frustrated me. It was made me super angry. Like I know I should be there, but like right now I'm not. And that's as deep as like 95% of you guys want to take it. Now, you can get deeper, pause, but this is where it becomes more advanced. There's a lot more nuance in between this, and you're more likely to mess it up. So I wouldn't suggest doing this if you're still like really internalizing this stuff. And if you don't already know like your outcomes and doing all this stuff I just covered, you're not already consistently doing that, like pulling out a pain point. Actually, don't even try this. But for those of you guys who are on a more advanced level, like you're already doing this as a walk in the park, then the next thing you want to do is drive that pain home even more, and then tie an identity into this as well. So you can ask them like something as simple as, in a lot of calls, when you get to that level of where you're building that pain consistently, you're in the moment, and then you challenge them and you're like, how much longer can you be the dad? Can you be the mom? Can you be the husband that isn't able to take care of his wife the way he wants to? And they're like, not long at all. Then you challenge them, are you sure? Because I mean, most people end up just settling for that. Like they're like, no, like I'm not most people. Okay, but why though? Like why specifically do you feel like it's not worth settling for that reality that you've been experiencing the last year straight? All right, so I'm using context from situation, which is how long their problem's been going on for. And that's one of the last most important things too, is you want to challenge them. Like that you can know that they've been working their job for 10 years, but how long have they been experiencing their problem as well? You want to find out, and you want to ask how long after they've already been explaining their pain points, because how long is an amplifier. If I'm like, hey, how was your day yesterday at work? And you're like, yeah, just, it was pretty boring. Like I worked 12 hours, stacked a bunch of boxes. Like, yeah, it was just tiring. And then I was like, okay, well, how long have you been working this job for doing all that? And you're like, oh, the past decade. I'd be like, holy shit, like so much more pain. You can just visualize how much more painful that is to be doing that for a decade instead of just a day. And so you always want to ask them, how long has that problem been going on for? Whether it's like the money, like how long have you not been able to provide for your family the way you want to, or how long have you been working 80 hours a week and not being able to spend time with your family the way you want to? You always want to do that to just exacerbate the pain and really amplify it. And then from there, you're going to eliminate the next best option, which really just means, why not go do the obvious alternative? Hey, why not just, I don't know, like ask for a raise and then hope and pray you get the income you want to be able to take care of your family the way you want to. And they'll tell you, oh, I can't, like, it's just not a viable solution. Like they're selling you on why they can't do the obvious thing. Hey, why not just try and wing this strategy on your own, just watch a bunch of YouTube videos and hope and pray that works. Well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to buy a house and then burn 40K and then I fuck everything up. Like I'd rather just pay to learn the right stuff to do from the get-go, because it's going to save me more money in the long term and it's going to get me there a lot faster, right? So people start selling you on why they shouldn't do the next best alternative. After you do that, like I said, you can get commitment on them doing something, which is using the identity frame thing of saying, well, how much much longer can you be the guy who just isn't able to support his family the way he wants to? And they're like, well, not much longer. And you're like, well, are you sure? Because then the real question I have for you is not, do you want to continue to have to experience this? Because it's obvious, no one wants to experience it, but are you actually committed to doing the things required to actually get there? So you can get like little mini commitment in there as well. But if you're not at advanced level yet, don't worry about this. Literally just focus on these three. What's missing? Get an actual experience, make it painful by probing into it, getting them to give you an example. And then once you've done that, ask them what was running through their mind during that experience, then eliminate the next best obvious option to remove the DIY objection. Is probably the most common one you're going to get, which is like, hey, why not just like do this on your own or wing it? And you want to say it like that, like you're throwing it away. It's a throwaway option. Like use your body language, right? And your tonality. Like, hey, why not just do that bullshit? That's literally what the tonality you want to have is like, why not just go, I don't know, try and like wing it on your own. I like disgusted because it's just like terrible idea. Whereas I could look like, why not just go do it on your own? Totally different meaning behind what I'm saying, right? So it's very intentional. And I want you to notice my tonality, my body language behind what I'm doing so that you can actually iterate and do the exact same thing too. And like I said, be you. Don't try and copy how I sound. Think about the emotion you're trying to convey. So if you're concerned, how you sound when you're concerned is different than how I sound, most likely. When you're curious, how you sound is different than how I sound. So just sound like yourself whenever you actually feel those exact emotions. Now, the next section here is going into getting someone to identify their limiting belief. You eliminate it, and then you get them to buy into a certain identity. And this is where you can get really advanced, but I'm going to keep it very simple. If you guys want a more advanced version of all this, let me know. Like I'll definitely create something even more thorough and crazy, but this should be, at least from my experience, from all the offers I've helped manage, consult with, people I've coached with, closures I've met with, most people need to consistently master this part before they get to a more advanced version. So that's why I'm going to cover this, because it's going to be the most helpful to you right now. Essentially, with a buying decision, you need to get to what do they actually need in terms of deliverables, like support, resources, etc. And then why haven't they actually gotten it yet? You can find out, okay, like, yeah, I need sales training, I need a training objection handling, I need a better framework, I need a better scripting, I need to know how to handle these objections, etc. The biggest question you need to ask is, over the time period they've been experiencing their problem, let's say it's been 2 years, they've been stuck in their job, they know they should be in a better spot, they want to provide for their family, that's how long they've been experiencing their problem. You're going to ask them, okay, well, over the past 2 years, besides speaking with me here today, have you spoken to anyone to actually fix this, or what have you been doing? And they're like, nah, haven't spoken to anyone. You're going to look at your baller watch and you're going to be like, okay, I mean, 2 years, it's like quite a long time. Like, what happened? Like, why haven't you been doing anything to fix this? And just having a real raw conversation, because either way, they're going to tell you that they spoke to other people or they didn't. Either way, you're going to be able to get a limiting belief every single time. And the reason that we do this and why it's so important as well is because of this thought process here. Now, I don't know how many of you have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It is basically the foundation of our necessities. And this was made, I think it was like 1930s or 40s, but this is the pillars that our brains stand on in terms of importance to us on why we make decisions and why we do certain things. And so at the very base bottom, right, we need physiological needs, which is like air, food, shelter, water. Like we need to be able to survive. So like survival is like number one core thing that we prioritize when it comes to our actions. And safety, right? So like making sure we have the proper resources, like we're in good health, etc. Like I'm sure you guys have heard the saying, perfectly healthy human being wants a million things and $1 million, but a sick person wants one thing, which is to be healed, to be normal and not be sick, right? That, as you can see, it just stacks from there, and then it goes to friendships, intimacy, relationships. It gets a bit more higher level to the highest levels, which is esteem and self-actualization. And esteem and identity go hand in hand. It's basically like status, for example, recognition, all this stuff. Respect, that goes into how do people view me? How do I view myself? And then self-actualization is not only just the desire to become the best that one person can be, which is like the highest lever you can pull on for someone to take action, but it is also, simply put, the fact that you are congruent with your actions and who you know you should be. And whenever you're incongruent with who you know you can be and what you're doing, you have this internal conflict that makes you feel really fucking weird. And it doesn't make you feel good. You have way more anxiety, way more stress. And so if you are ever feeling that in your life, oftentimes it's because you're not actually acting in true alignment with who you know you should be. And that is the reason behind a lot of your emotional problems that are maybe going on right now. And the same thing with your prospects. They experience this stuff all the time too, because they may not be as emotionally sophisticated as you are. And if you're watching this, then they definitely are, because this is a very deep level of why people make decisions and why they don't. Bear with me. I know this is going to sound slightly woo-woo with all his beliefs and Maslow's hierarchy of needs and all this crazy stuff, but it is truly why people make decisions. This is the highest lever that you can pull on to get people to get out of their own way and make decisions. So again, pulling off of what I was saying earlier, which is that people are going to say that they either looked for help or they didn't. I'm going to go down both scenarios so that you know what to do in every situation. So if they're like, yeah, I spoke with other people, and you say, cool, why don't you move forward with them? And they're going to give you some bullshit excuse. Sometimes it's real. They could be like, yeah, I just didn't have the money at the time. If someone says that, or like, yeah, I just didn't have the time at the time, you always want to ask them, okay, well, what shifted more recently that makes you feel like you have the time or you have the money? And sometimes it's that easy. People could be like, yeah, I have the money now. Like before I didn't. Okay. And then some people could be like, oh yeah, I have the time now. Like before I was working 2 jobs. Now I'm only working 1. And I purposely left that job so I can free up time to do this thing, to actually add on a business and make more money and escape my job, my 9 to 5. Those are like legit reasons, because they could not have the money before. They could not have like had the time before because they had so many responsibilities, and those responsibilities outweighed like starting a business or doing whatever to improve their life. That's where we get like some more real responses. But a lot of times though, like I would say more often than not, it's usually some type of limiting belief. One of the most common limiting beliefs you're going to hear is I didn't have the time, or there's just so much stuff out there I didn't know what to go with. So it's like skepticism. And those are the 2 most common answers you're going to get. Sometimes though, people will just tell you straight up, like, I just didn't prioritize it. And those are when you want to reward the good behavior for them admitting it. Like, hey, it takes like a kudos to you for even realizing that. I mean, I can't even tell you how many people, they kind of just go through life blindly without actually considering why they haven't already changed their life. But the fact that you know that already says a lot about you, because on top of one aspect of like knowing what's behind that, right? The other aspect is actually knowing, okay, why have we let this thing stop us though? So like, real with me, just from like an extreme ownership perspective, no judgment whatsoever. Why do you feel like you've known you haven't been prioritizing this thing, even though it's so important to you and it's causing all these problems in your life? Like, why do you feel like you haven't been prioritizing it? Like, what's behind that? And you get to like real deep answers. So this is what I'm talking about. There's this very thin line between becoming a literal therapist, which sales is basically like therapy. I mean, therapists, like, they're great, but you don't want to become so much of a therapist where people are like, what the hell are you doing? What are you talking about? And the way you do that is by bringing them through this process where you're having a real, just honest, raw conversation. And the more sophisticated they are, the more you can just acknowledge that they know what you're doing. But because they know what you're doing, they also understand the importance behind it. So for example, someone could say like, I know what you're doing. Like I could be selling someone in sales and like, I know you're trying to pull out my limiting belief. And I'm like, awesome. Like I love working with people like you who are already super aware on the process and like how this works. But that also means that you truly understand the importance behind this, because on your calls with your prospects, you know, are you just kind of like letting their limiting beliefs go, or are you actually addressing them? And if they're like, yeah, I'm addressing them, it's like, well, why do you do that? Well, because at the end of the day, it's going to help them, right? And let's say they're not in sales, right? And they're like, I know what you're doing. Like you're trying to sell me or whatever. I'm not trying to sell you. I'm just genuinely trying to help you. Like obviously there's something that we could do to help, and that involves finances and all that good stuff. But like genuinely, whether you work with us or anyone else, if we don't get this right, none of it matters. Like I genuinely want to make sure no matter what, whether we work together or not, that you actually get very clear on this one thing. And that is attacking their limiting belief. To get to the point of when someone says that they have not done anything, you're going to ask them, okay, why not? And I'm going to go over the 2 most common ones. If you want, I can make a whole video on how to handle every single objection as well, because there's like a million of them that would take me an insane amount of time to cover. But the 2 main ones, most common ones you're going to get again are I didn't have the time, and or, which is basically just I didn't prioritize it, and or skepticism. Like they're just fearful. They don't know who to go with. There's so many options out there. They've been burned before, etc. Whenever you hear those things, so let's start with time. If someone's like, yeah, I just didn't have the time, you need to challenge them. And you can say, hey, can I challenge you for a moment on that? That's probably one of the easiest ways you can ask it. Some people like saying, can I share a perspective with you? Can I make a suggestion? I like, hey, can I challenge you on that? Because they're like, yeah, like, I mean, you can challenge me. Like if I'm challenging someone, it's kind of like almost like a little competitive, like kind of fun. And whenever you say that, it gives you permission to be a lot more direct. And pay attention to the language I'm about to use, because the language you use and your tonality behind it, like notice how my intentions feel behind what I'm saying compared to being super direct. So I'm gonna give you 2 examples. One way of handling that limiting belief, as you could say, well, is that you didn't have the time or you just didn't make the time. See how mad I look, how analytical I look, and that'll probably cause you to be like, well, fuck you. Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I could have made the time, but like, geez. Or they may not answer at all. They may like just go into fight or flight mode because you're being so direct and brutal. Like, just to be honest with that. Instead of being that direct, you can also say, and depends who you're speaking to, right? Like sometimes you can be that direct if you've built enough rapport in the call. But if you don't want to like hurt their feelings, or you don't want to like piss them off a crazy amount, you address their limiting belief and you let them know that you understand it, like it kind of almost feels like it's being validated, like it's not in the world, it's not your fault, but we do need to look at this side, which is that what you're doing is simply not helping you. And so what that looks like is you're going to say, hey, can I challenge you on that for a second? And they're going to say, yeah. At the end of the day, like I totally get what you're saying. Like it feels like there's a million things we're doing and I get it. Yeah, I live my own life too. Like I have a million things. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that we're juggling in life. But at the end of the day, if we're being brutally honest with ourselves, we all have 24 hours in a day. And so it doesn't necessarily come down to like the time that we have. What it really boils down to is the time that we make for the things that are important to us. That's what we do as humans. And so can you see how part of the reason that you're still experiencing all of your problems, like you don't like your job, you can't provide for your family the way you want to, you're not able to spend time with your son, you can't go to his games. Part of that reason is because you simply haven't prioritized this sooner. Can you see that? And you've noticed my tonality and how I'm saying it. You can also throw in words like, and I only say that because I care. Yeah, I'm on your team. Like I really want to see you win, but ultimately I would hate to see you continue to fall into this trap, which is telling yourself that you don't have the time when in reality, no one has more time than me or you. We all have 24 hours. Me, you, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. Like it just boils down to what are we prioritizing? And part of the reason that you're experiencing these problems and still having to go through it is because you haven't prioritized fixing this a lot sooner, or else you'd probably already be where you want to be. Is that crazy to say? And so you're getting them to agree and buy into the fact that, which is true, all this stuff is facts, that their reason for not moving forward in the past or not fixing this problem in the past is the exact reason they're experiencing all their problems. So it's not until they overcome that way of thinking do they actually get to where they want to be in life. Then you're going to tie a cost to that belief. So the flow is ask permission to pimp slap them around and tell them what they need to hear, give them a little bit of a tough time, tell them a statement that is undeniable, that logically it makes sense. And then after that, you're going to tie a cost once you get them to admit that that limiting belief is the reason they're experiencing the problems. Because then you're going to ask them, because we haven't prioritized this sooner the last year, how much do you feel like left on the table? What do you feel like that's cost us? If it's more like around time, and that's all they care about, like, well, I could have spent time with my family, and it cost me a ton of memories, cost me a ton of money, then you can literally quantify it. You're like, how much money do you feel like you left on the table? Oh, probably, 100K. Or if they're like, I don't know, you can do the math, right? You're like, okay, well, let's say you started this a year ago. Where do you feel like your business would be? Oh, I'm doing at least 10K a month. If it's been a year, so you left about at least 120 grand on the table. Is that right? And they're like, yeah. One of my favorite things to do during these times as well is you can literally pull up your calculator and theirs. You're like, hey, do you have a calculator handy by chance? Okay, cool. I want to make sure we're on the same page here. So let's say you got it to $10,000 a month, right? Let's say it took you 3 months to get there. So let's be realistic. Over the past 9 months, we've left. So you take 10,000 times 9. Did you get the same number? And you literally show it to them on their screen, and they're going to see the big old number that says $90,000. They're like, yeah, does that look right? What goes on internally when you see that number? Like, yeah, it's a lot of money. Okay, could you use that? And they're like, yeah, I could. Okay, what would you use it on? If you had an extra $90,000 in the bank, what would you do with that? And this segues really well into, it's kind of a mix of feature pacing, like what does getting to their goal do for them, and helps them grasp a specific moment. So these are kind of intertwined. That's why I like to bundle these in. Then they're going to say, I'd buy a car, I'd pay off my tuition, I'd put my kids through college, I would have gone on vacation with my kids once a quarter over the past year, et cetera, et cetera. It gets them to really visualize and make it very real for what they're leaving on the table. And all you're going to do after that is simply ask them, knowing how much we left on the table and what we left on the table, is it really worth continuing to hold on to that belief that we just haven't had the time, knowing how much it's cost us? And they're always going to say no when you do that properly. When they say no, the last aspect you need to do is get them to commit with their identity. And one of the best ways you can do that, and again, there's a way more advanced version of identity you can do with this, but it's literally just asking them, are they actually committed? All you got to do is literally say, hey, you and I both know what you left on the table and how much it's cost you. But at the end of the day, the real question I have for you is not, do you want to continue to just let all this stuff happen, but are you committed? And I don't mean to a program or a platform or a person or something. The only person you should be committed to is yourself. Because at the end of the day, if you continue to let this limiting belief stay into your mind and you continue to tell yourself that you don't have the time, you don't have the resources, or you need to know every little minute detail before you do something, what do you think is going to end up happening? Because what happens to people who always try and wait for the perfect moment? They come up with a bunch of reasons why they can't do something instead of why they can. What happens to those guys? And so we're using identity, right? It's like, oh, well, they don't make it anywhere, right? So are you committed not to a program, but ultimately to yourself when it comes to getting resourceful with what you have in terms of money, finances, is getting outside your comfort zone, especially when it's scary and times are uncertain, and ultimately taking complete ownership over your life with the time you do have and prioritizing things so that you can get better outcomes in life. And they say yes. You never want to take that surface level yes. You always want to say, okay, but why are you committed? Like, why are you actually committed to doing all those things? And they have to give you get a very specific reason. If they're just like, well, because of everything we talked about, right? They might say that answer, but you're just going to say, yeah, and I can understand that. But if you really had to think, like, what's the biggest reason that it's actually worth it for you to commit? Because obviously we covered a lot of stuff here. And then it gets them to reiterate something that's very specific, that's very meaningful to them. And so a lot of times when you do this right, you can literally pitch right after this. One of the things you want to do though, because you already got, all right, I need to get this level of support, I need to get these resources, etc. You already got identity, you already got them committed. One of the golden nuggets that you can use in here as well is literally saying and having them mentally rehearse through the fear, because every B2C prospect, they're typically fearful. It happens with business owners all the time too. It's always like everyone's always scared because results aren't guaranteed, right? Nothing in life is guaranteed. And so it's scary whenever you're growing. Like that's literally what it means. Whenever you're growing, you're outside your comfort zone. And whenever you're outside your comfort zone, your brain is literally hardwired to tell you, hey, go back to the comfort cave, as some people call it, where you just continue doing what you're used to doing. And that's what's comfortable. What you can literally do though is ask them, hey, and in those moments when it is like the scariest, the most uncomfortable, how are you going to show up? Because there's going to be moments in your life where fear is going to be whispering in your ear, telling you all the reasons that something's not going to work out or where you can't do something. How are you going to respond to that voice in your head when it shows up inevitably? They're say, well, I would tell fear to fuck off. I literally get people to tell me that on calls. I tell them to fuck off. I'll push through it. Okay, but how are you going to do that? I'm going to tell them, like, what are you going to tell yourself? I'm going to tell myself, hey, even though I'm scared, even though whatever, I'm going to have the courage to get through this thing. And when you do that, you're literally mentally rehearsing them through how to work through their fear, which is what's exactly going to happen whenever you drop the big old fat price on them at the end of the call. They're going to get fearful. They're going to start reverting back to some of their old beliefs. But because you've tied a cost to it, let's say in this example, right, it costs them $10,000 a month and your program's $10K. You can always say, compared to what? Because then they're going to say, oh, compared to my bank account, my financial situation. And you can ask them, well, compared to where your life would be and where the finances would be if you had this implemented, because if you had a business that was doing $120,000 a year, would 10K really be a lot of money at that point? And they're going to say no. And so that's why creating leverage right here, and this is truly why I believe the call is make or break during problem awareness and solution awareness right here, because as you can see, we have so much leverage. We're getting so much commitment buy-in. We're helping them work through their fear before you even drop price or talk about what you do. And so this is where the sale is truly made. Like you rewatch this whole section, like keep studying this over and over again to see exactly how to build pain consistently and how exactly to overcome these limiting beliefs. Now, the other main belief I told you I'd cover as well is skepticism, if they've been burned before, right? There's a couple of different things you can use here. For skepticism, either people are going to say like, oh, there's just so much stuff out there, like I just don't know what to go with, or there's a lot of scammers online, blah, blah, blah. You always want to challenge people and literally just ask them the same thing. Hey, can I challenge you for a moment on that? Like, yeah, of course. I really would hate to see you continue to fall into this trap because I see it so often. I totally understand your concern. Like, obviously there are bad people out there. There's also a lot of great people. And my question I have for you is like, at the end of the day, how will you ever know for a fact if one of these programs, if one of these guys is going to be able to get you the results that you want or not? What's the only way to find out? And you want to get them to admit, well, I have to try. Then once again, boom, same framework. Can you see how not trying something over the past year and a half is part of the reason that you're still not able to provide for your family the way you'd love to? And they're like, yes, I can see that. Well, how much do you feel like that's cost you? X amount of dollars. What would you do with that money? So is it worth continuing to hold on to that thought process of there's so many people out there and your skepticism, knowing what we left on the table? Okay, well, why not? Well, what are you going to do when those emotions show up again? What are you going to say to those voices in your head, right? So you can see this is a framework that you can consistently use. And for all you guys who need like the exact scripting, literally go copy this link, look up YouTube transcriber, take this transcript and throw it in the transcript, throw it in Claude, make your own SOP based on this. I'll probably even make you guys a free, I'll do that actually. I'll make you guys a free like Claude example on like how to think about these word tracks down below. Feel free to click the link, but then also transcribe this. You can make your own SOP. You use this as like your own little mini AI for your own call reviews. Like you can take this call that I'm going through for your own sales calls and ask, what would Calvin tell me to do differently? Use the resources you do have. Like it's insanely valuable. And again, like I said, this cost me a ridiculous amount of money that I invested to learn this. And I'm telling you guys, for free so that you guys can really implement it. And that's the number one thing I want you to walk away from all this too. And you can really instill this in your prospects as well, is that information without implementation means nothing. You just have a bunch of cool ideas or thoughts in your head, but you're not actually doing any of it. Like none of it matters. Really important to implement all this stuff. Now, the last aspect is super important, which is consequence. You can get really clear again on consequences, because all this, I basically merge it together where I'm asking them, hey, what's going to continue to happen if you let this way of thinking prevent you from getting the results you're looking to get? Like, what happens if you continue to tell yourself that you need to research? That's one of the most common things, right? Is them being in research mode. Like they need to research more stuff. So you can literally ask them how long you've been in research mode for. You ask them, what tangible results have you gotten after 8 months of research? And they're going to say nothing, because most people who do a lot of research don't actually take a lot of action, like tangible action, tangible results specifically. So when they say, yeah, like I haven't gotten anything, then you can challenge them again. Can you see how being stuck in this research mode, looking for the perfect business or the perfect thing, is part of the reason you're experiencing all your problems? And they're like, yeah. So that's what everything's always tied to. Let's say last one I cover with you is, what happens if someone's like, yeah, I've been burned before. You want to ask them, okay, like what happened? Oh, you want to find out, was it the program or was it them? And the way you do that is just by asking them, was anyone else in the program getting results that you wanted to get? And if they're like, yes, what do you feel like was the difference between you and them that got results if you guys had the same information? Well, it was just me. So like, what do you feel like they did differently to make it work? Well, they probably maximize the resource more. So you get them to take ownership over that happening. So after you get clear on whether or not it was like their fault or was just the program, like they straight up got scammed, all you want to relate it back to, do you want to let that past experience burn you twice? You know what I mean by that? They're like, that no one's really going to know. Or else if they do, then you're like, what do I mean by that? And they're like, yeah, I don't want to prevent me from actually getting the help I do need. Well, that's what you want to lead them to, right? Because most people are like, no, can you explain? And whenever you explain it, you're like, yeah, I mean, you got burned the first time, right? Because it took your time, your energy, and your money. But they ended up burning you a second time because since then, you haven't actually invested again into yourself, because at the end of the day, you still need the help that you originally signed up for. So can you see how right now you're letting them bring it twice? And then they're like, yeah, because then you can tie a cost to it. Once again, same exact framework. So how much do you feel like that's cost us by letting that bad experience prevent us from making a decision to change everything? And then once again, you get a cost, you quantify it, and then from there ask them, is it worth holding on to moving forward, right? So it's the same exact structure, but you're just tying in those simple reframes to each limiting belief and then getting them to commit to letting it go, and then having them mentally rehearse going through fear and uncertainty. And that's literally everything. Like you went through future pace, consequence through that structure, and all you're doing from there, right? You're getting to a specific moment, future pacing and consequencing, you're just sweeping the rug under from them, and then you're getting them to commit to change. The last question you can ask is, why do something about this now? This is like, you absolutely have to implement this, right? You can rehearse them through fear, you can get them to commit, but you always want to ask, okay, but why do something about this now? Because I'm sure you heard this saying, like every good diet starts on Monday, or new year, new me. Like, why actually do something about this now and not be like everyone else? And you'll get a lot of responses of people being like, oh, I'm not like everyone else. You want to get them to be specific as to like, why genuinely do something about this now? Because you could have done something about this a year and a half ago. So what's going to be different about now? That's where you get answers like, I have lost enough money to the point where I'm like, this has to change. Or I am just tired of continuing to having to experience all this stuff, and like now needs to be the time. And you'll tell by their tonality, by their body language, because again, that is 93% of communication is how they say it, not exactly what they say. And that's when you go into your presentation, getting commitment, tie downs, and handling any concerns. Like I said, I'm going to link both those abilities down below as well. That covers the presentation with AI prompting to make like a basic pitch for you guys as like a baseline. And then if you want some help on that, again, DM me on Instagram. And then also I have a whole video breakdown on how to handle every single objection. Now, again, it is framed around more B2B, but really you can use the exact same thing for B2C. It is just a lot more simple version that works really well for business owners, but you guys can use that exact same thing for your own offer, and it really works well against sophisticated buyers. So if you're speaking with people who have more than 10 brain cells and know what you're doing, or they've seen these like reframes on their feed as well, and those aren't working for you, go check out the ones that I literally crafted and made that you guys can use. Again, it's going to be down below the video I did on it. But if you want the literal mind map that I personally made on how to handle every single objection that you get, DM me on Instagram and I'll shoot it over to you as well. Now, after watching that video, if you guys watch that and you come back here, or if you go watch that video and just comment on there any video, and you want a very like thorough in-depth version for B2C specifically that is like heavy B2C reframes, let me know. I could definitely make something. But that again is like the mind map that I wish I had during my journey. And so you guys are gonna get access to it for completely free. Just literally hit me up. That is literally the entire framework that I personally use to collect a ridiculous amount of money, and has also just generated tens of millions of dollars for different people in the space by using that exact same framework. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you are a closer and you want some more help with your sales process, whatever, hit me up. I'm more than happy to just give you a bunch of free sauce just like this, and or if it makes sense, if you want some more in-depth help, hey, let me know as well, and we can potentially see if I have some time available for it. Now, if you are an off-roader and you want help with your sales team, like you want something more done for you where you can actually get reps placed in, trained in with this exact framework already built into your business, hit me up on Instagram as well. Or if you literally just want consulting, you already have a sales team, you just need better help managing them, implementing systems, SOPs, etc., hit me up. I have a whole AI call review that I literally built, and that took me additional months and months and months of my time and the same amount of iteration to create. I also have an AI roleplay bot for role playing as well, so you have unlimited role plays. All this stuff costs nothing for the role plays and all that stuff in the AI, and is all for my private clients. If you guys need any help, hit me up on Instagram. All this information, none of it means anything without implementation. Actually use this information, study it, like I said, throw it into Claude, all that good stuff, and I will see you guys in the next one. Hope you enjoyed.